Okay, so throw your name on here. There is no back to these, so these will be able to get glued right into your notebook. And it is currently second hour. Correct? Yeah. Thank you. I'll be right back, video. Hey, so like we discussed after that quick write, absolute value is the distance from 0. Absolute value is the distance from 0. Okay, absolute value signs are represented by these absolute value bars. So right here this says the absolute value of 5. So it's 2 tall lines around the 5. When you draw those absolute value bars, make them tall enough that they don't look like 1s. That it doesn't look like it says 151. So, we already talked about this. What is the absolute value of 5? 5. It's 5 spots away from 0. What's the absolute value of negative 5? 5. Okay? So, here are our steps to solving an equation that has absolute values in it. Our first step is to isolate the absolute value. We did today's lesson after Tuesday's lesson on purpose because Tuesday when we had radicals, the first step was to isolate that square root. So the first step is the same. Get rid of everything that's outside the absolute value. Then, how we get rid of the absolute value is we split into 2 completely separate equations. When we split into 2 equations, we are splitting into one equation that is equal to the positive version and one equation that is equal to the negative version. So that was my shorthand of writing equal to positive and equal to negative. The reason why is if I say that the absolute value of something is 5, then that means what's inside the absolute value could either be equal to 5 or it could be equal to negative 5. So we have to solve both of those possibilities. And then that's step 3, is to solve both of those equations. Okay, any questions right now? Okay, let's dive into problems then. So step 1 on this first problem is going to be to isolate the absolute value. In this first problem, what is inside the absolute value? The 2x. Okay? So see how my absolute value lines are there? 2x is inside. So we need to move that minus 5. We are going to start by adding 5 to both sides. So we're just using normal, old opposite operations. So we've got absolute value of 2x on the left equals, on the right, negative 1 plus 5 is 4. Okay. Now, is there anything outside this absolute value here? No. So we are ready to split, and we are literally going to split into 2 separate equations, and you want to write those down. So I like to draw an arrow, and I say I'm going to solve 2x equals 4, and I'm also going to be solving 2x equals negative 4. So if I say the absolute value of something equals 4, then that means the 2 possibilities are that it actually equals 4 or negative 4. Because if it equals 4, the absolute value of 4 is 4. If it equals negative 4, absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. And I think that's too many times to say 4 in a sentence. Once you split, you have 2 separate equations, and you are just going to solve these separately. So, 2x equals 4, divide by 2 on both sides. You'll get x equals 2. 2x equals negative 4. Divide 2 by both sides. X equals negative 2. All right. Any questions right now? Okay. So isolate the absolute value, split into two equations, equal to positive 4 and negative 4, solve them both. You are going to have two answers for every problem today. You need to get both of them in order to be done. Hey, next problem we got. What is outside the absolute value on this problem? The 4. What operation is that 4 doing with the absolute value? Multiplication. So just like if it were up against parentheses, it would be multiplication. It's the same thing with absolute value signs. So to get rid of that 4, we're going to divide both sides by 4. On the left side, these cancel. So I've got absolute value of x plus 9 equals 24 divided by 4, which is 6 these days. Now, there is nothing outside my absolute value. Since there is nothing outside my absolute value, I am ready to split my absolute value. So I'm going to split this into two equations. They are going to be x plus 9 equals positive 6, and x plus 9 equals negative 6. The thing that you're making positive and negative is what it's equal to, not what's inside the absolute value. It's a common misconception. Okay, so x plus 9 equals 6. We will subtract 9 from both sides. We'll get x equals 6 minus 9, which is negative 3. And then x plus 9 equals negative 6. We'll subtract 9 from both sides. Negative 6 minus 9 is negative 15. So your answers will completely depend on the operations that you have to do after you split. Sometimes there'll be one positive and one negative. Sometimes they'll both be negative. Sometimes they'll both be positive. Sometimes it'll be the same number, positive and negative. Sometimes it'll be completely different numbers. It kind of just depends. If all you do after you split is multiply and divide, then they'll be the same number. If after you split, you add and subtract, that's going to move you side to side on a number line. So that's why they're going to be different numbers. Right, any questions right now? Okay, we have two more examples. These last two examples, sometimes everything's outside the absolute value, sometimes nothing's outside the absolute value. So that's what these last two examples are for. So this next one, we've got absolute value of x divided by 4 plus 13 equals 15. This divided by 4 and this plus 13 are both outside the absolute value. So that means before we can split our absolute value, we got to get rid of both of them. So I'll start by subtracting 13 in an equation like this. I'll have absolute value of x over 4 equals 15 minus 13 is 2. Okay. Absolute value of x over 4. We can multiply both sides by 4. These 4's cancel. I get absolute value of x equals 8. 2 times 4 is 8. And then finally, our absolute value is alone. It's isolated. So now is when we get to split. So we will split. and we will have x equals 8. We will have x equals negative 8. And then we're done, because x is by itself as soon as we split. So sometimes you'll split in the middle, but sometimes you won't split until the very, very end. Okay. Last problem. What is outside my absolute value here? Nothing. So what am I ready to do? Split. So this one I can split from the very beginning. So I'll have x plus 2 all over 3 equals 5. X plus 2 all over 3 equals negative 5. Okay, x plus 2 all over 3 equals 5. We'll solve both of these. I'm going to do them one at a time. You'll end up doing the same steps, getting different answers. So I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. These will cancel. So I've got x plus 2 equals 5 times 3 is 15. And I will subtract 2 from both sides. We'll get x equals 13. For the other one, we've got x plus 2 all over 3 equals negative 5. We'll multiply both sides by 3. So same steps. We'll have x plus 2 equals negative 15. And then we'll subtract 2 from both sides. We'll get x equals negative 17. Okay, let me stop this recording, glue in your notes while I stop this recording, and then I want to show you a couple of these on a number line.